Hi there. Today's video will focus on WorldCat, and it's a kind of an advanced introduction. The components of the video are 5. What is WorldCat? Searching with WorldCat. 2 discussions of working with results, and a review of saving results. And obviously each one of these can take us into about an hour, so I'm not going to cover everything. But this is just an introduction, and maybe later I'll do specific videos for each one of these. The best thing about WorldCat is to do it yourself, because it's a very rich system with obviously access to a lot of material. So, what is WorldCat? WorldCat is a union catalog. And back in the day of print research, you would have a card catalog or a set of books for each library. And the Library of Congress would issue something called a union catalog, which was this massive set of books that integrated the holdings of different major libraries, only the major ones, the research ones. And that means that all of the books and other items held in those libraries were listed together in these books and then had an index so that you could search for them, which is really the critical piece here, right? So in the back of every volume, you could find index references for all the items and basically listed through subject, year, I think also, and an author. And the subjects were based on the Library of Congress classification, usually, and didn't include more than 2 or 3 subject words, right? So searching was limited, and you had to play with the book, so to speak, to find the stuff you wanted. And it wasn't comprehensive, and it's not electronic, and it's not full text search. So slowly these library systems, through a thing called OCLC, became electronic. Then they became merged. Then they became public access, and that's what WorldCat is. In other words, WorldCat is a union catalog of libraries in the US and now globally. And it has a public access interface on the web, right? Where anybody can use it. But we're going to actually use the interface that is paid for through our library system. So this is Rutgers's library system, which is familiar to most students and professors, and typically there will be on these pages a database. This thing, database. Type it correctly, database. It's right here, right? And under databases, depending on how many you have in your library system, you go to WorldCat at the very end. And where is it? Right here. And it's going to ask for a login. And this is the interface that you get with WorldCat through the library system, right? You can see that it's branded, and this is the simple search interface. So again, item 1 what is WorldCat? WorldCat is a digital catalog of most items. I'm sure they have a percentage somewhere, 99.99%, held by US libraries and some global libraries together. So it's all searchable together. This has huge implications for research, right? It's an extremely powerful tool, and if you don't learn how to use it, you actually will not benefit from the ability that you have in the system to produce two very different kinds of searches. One is I only need 2 books on something, and I don't really care how, good they are or how they're good enough. 2 good enough books, or sources, whatever. And you can find that. And at the other end of the spectrum are searches in which you want to find the very, very specific things that you don't know about yet, that are unique, that are special, right? And that are, hopefully the more the better, right? So you need to do very open-ended searching and very careful culling of the results. So this video will introduce you to the basics of each one of these things. And the first search interface here is obviously through these fields. Most records have these entries of year, ISBN number, maybe not, if it's a modern, 20th century kind of thing. I don't know when ISBN was put into practice, but mid-20th century, I guess. Title of the item, author of the item, including corporate author, and keyword, which is any word in the record, right? And so these are fields, specific fields. Keyword is anywhere in the record. So you have to know how these operators function, and obviously you have little information pieces here, right, on explaining it. And you can do, for example, in year, a range of years, right? Now this is the simple search interface, right? There is a more advanced and an expert search interfaces, right? So advanced allows you to work with Boolean operators, and Boolean operators are searches in which you apply one field, a database field, right, and then another together, right? So, and it's very, very important that you understand the difference between keyword and these other categories, including subject, because they're not equivalent, right? Keyword is huge. The word water or the word tree anywhere in the record as opposed to in the subject field makes a big difference in search results. So this is where you get to control the results. And typically I want to do a trial search to see what publications have come out on coffee in Mexico. But especially since I did my research, which was 15 years ago or so, I want to catch up with the literature. And in that kind of search for published materials that are recent, I would do coffee as subject word, right? And Mexico's as subject. If I put keyword, it's too expansive. In other words, I want the items that are classified by the Library of Congress as coffee subject, Mexico subject. Now, please notice here that I am searching in English, and this is excluding the literature in Spanish, which would use different classification, maybe, right? Because published in Mexico is not going to be classified as a subject in English, right? And different altogether conventions. including obviously titles in Spanish, right? And so this search would allow me to do coffee and Mexico. And I could do an integrated search here where using the expert search, where it would be coffee and Mexico or café and Mexico, okay? In the one same search. Now, obviously, I could do that as a separate search, but be aware that this particular search right now is in English and is basically based on subject, right? Not keyword. So I'm going to put here since 2000 and let's say 5. And let's pause before we do a search and look at all these options. WorldCat is a catalog of everything, and obviously it includes books. Increasingly, it includes references to articles, specific articles. It will list, which is a tremendous advantage, the chapters within books. So that if there happens to be a chapter in a book edited on, let's say, agriculture in Mexico, and there's a chapter on coffee, it'll pick it up and show me the title of that chapter if the book is recent, right? So the more recent the book, the more sophisticated the classification of the book itself, and also the entry of that data in this system, which is not the same thing, right? Now, if it's a 19th century book about coffee, it's not going to have most of those details, right? And this is very, very, very important that you understand how the sort of material that you're looking for is described and entered, right? It includes archival materials, maps, computer files, and all sorts of other things. You can do limits, and you can also limit only to what Rutgers in this case has. And languages, if the item is subject classified with words in English, you could limit it to Spanish language. And it could very well be that a Mexico-produced book that is recent, that does not contain subject classifications in English in itself, that it has been cataloged somewhere with English language subject words. So it's a possibility that Coffee Mexico could show up in a book in Spanish, right? And here you can limit the number of libraries. So we're running a search for coffee in Mexico subject since 2005. I'm not specifying English, but this is a search that will probably produce mostly English items, unless Spanish language items have been cataloged by a library in English, which is not always the case. So search, and this is the results screen, okay? And again, you need to try trial runs, maybe, with a familiar subject, but not because you're looking for, hungry for results, but to just pause and forget about the actual results for a second and just look at the interface, right? Because this is all extremely powerful tools here, right? You have books, you have internet, you have visual results, which I guess are graphics, and you have some sort of sound clip or sound recording. You can sort, you can look at related subjects, related authors, you can add limitations. So, oh wait, I need to see really the only the things in the last 2 years. So you add a limit. And these other things we're going to look at them later, all right? So initially, the results list needs attention, right? This is the results list. I have this book. Look at that. And this tells you, this icon here tells you if it's a website. I could have excluded websites. I prefer not to see websites. There's an article here on Starbucks. Of course, coffee is both consumption and production, and many other things. So I was actually interested in production, not distribution or consumption. So I would choose to ignore the items, especially a video, right? That's funny. That's the icon for a video. This is an icon for, I guess, for an article. And you get 10 results, and you get to click to more over here, right? And this is telling you how many results you have total. You could just look at the books, right? You can look at the sound to see what the sound clip is. And if you go here and open an account, your own account, which is to save records, it will allow you to look at more than 10. I think it's maximum of 50. So you could get 50 records in one screen, which is very convenient. You can go through these things very quickly. Notice also that there's duplicates. And why? Because catalogs, the data that is entered in the system originates in multiple libraries, and there's probably some sort of cataloging distinction between this title and this title, based on these three libraries share a cataloging system, right? 3 right here, and over here, 46 cataloged it in that way, whatever minute difference it is, right? And this is where you also learn that cataloging, this is an online system that is searchable, but the end, not the end, the start process, well, I guess also the end process is human, right? So the start process is somebody that's working with, how do you even classify a book, right? And authors and editors that publish books get to make those choices. Those choices are never perfect or consistent, right? The closest that you have to a standard subject classification system is the Library of Congress system, and you should become familiar with it. I can do a video separately on that. And so I did a subject search, so I'm relying on the fact that somebody classified these items as coffee, right? And that's kind of obvious, but in other cases, it's not obvious at all, right? And that means that you need to run multiple searches with multiple different possibilities of cataloging or terms, right? Search terms. If what you're looking for is a multi-sided or complex piece that might have been interpreted or cataloged in different ways with different terms, right? If it's open to interpretation or open to multiple terminology, and I in a recent search that I did, I was looking for tobacco products, and I was searching for cigars. And I didn't realize that, wait a second, tobacco is an industry. That's what it was used to be called in the 19th century, because tobacco was basically cigar. So anything about tobaccos in the 19th century is mostly about cigar making. So I had to sort of play with both terms in the search, right? Now, you have other information here on who owns the library. I mean, what library owns the item. Some basic cataloging information, and obviously you can click on these items to see what they are, right? So let's look at this juicy one over here, and you get a full record, Susana's book, and the author, the title and so forth. This is sort of basic cataloging information, and this is information that is mostly in your search, right? Except maybe the subject keywords. So down here, who owns the book, right? And does Rutgers own it? And you can search for it. There should be an icon here that specifies if if Rutgers owns it, because I'm going through Rutgers in this search. You can do, because I logged in through, this isn't one of the beauties of WorldCat through Rutgers, is I can request, apparently Rutgers doesn't have it because it would indicate it here, but I can do a request interlibrary loan that is supposed to take me directly to the Rutgers Interlibrary Loan website with all the data entered, which is kind of cool, very time saving. And you can do these very kind of detailed searches, searching for versions with the same title and author. So you search for different versions of the same thing to see what variations, if that is useful to you, right? It could be that there's different editions of the book, right? And you're interested in the book itself, not, just you're doing literature or publishing history or whatever. Here's the ISBN. So a book in Mexico gets an ISBN. Obviously, it's a modern book. And then here you have this Library of Congress subject classifications. And there's a lot you can learn from looking at these, right? Coffee industry -- Mexico, Huatusco region, history 20th century. Coffee industry, social aspects, which is a very old terminology, but old school terminology, but that's what they use and still use as the official Library of Congress subject classifications for this book. Coffee growers, look at that, a distinction, and social aspects, and obviously this is as generic as it goes here, this inclusion here, but notice that these links are clickable. So suddenly I can do a search for the same classification with this official distribution of terms, right? And what I usually do for this kind of thing is I right click on it and open it in a new tab. If I think it's going to be useful, I have it there, right? Now notice that this is so detailed. How many books about Huatusco could there be on coffee? It's like, yeah, well, probably just one. And there it is. It's just one, the same book, right? So that's not particularly useful. What I would like to do is coffee industry Mexico as a search term, but technically the search that I entered should cover that as I entered the search, right? If you'll recall. But this is really useful because sometimes you discover that the subject terminology is very specific, and there's an index somewhere of it's online of what the subject of the Library of Congress subject classifiers, what they are. So for your research in general, you should have a sense of both keywords, which is any word, and also the subject classification that's possible for the kind of search that you're doing, right? And let's see here. You have time frame. I guess that's what the book is about. You have different call numbers that have been assigned to this book in this particular register, not in all libraries, but in this particular register. It's a book. It has an entry number, some sort of update number, and an OCLC number, which sometimes you will need in interlibrary loan requests. An accession number, right? This here. So we can go back to the results and pick another. In fact, let's pick the sound. I want to see what the sound recording is. It's in French from Montreal. And I have no idea. I guess I don't speak French. It's a sound recording of 6 hours of, I guess it's what could possibly be 6 hours. Here's the subject classification for that. This might be a lecture. 6-hour lecture. I have no idea what this is. So I could follow these rabbit holes to sort of figure out what this is and maybe put it in a translator to see what the heck that means. But I'm not going to do that. So, and let's see visual, right? Starbucks, coffee. These are photos, I guess. No, these are DVD videos. These are documentaries. I'm not interested in those. But let's look at the... Oh, there's no articles. Okay, so books. Funny that this one. See how when you go to books, the audio still shows up. It's listed as a book also. Maybe it's also a book. I don't know. And this is an interesting book I did not know about, and a German book on coffee cooperatives in Chiapas. And I would like to sort these by year. I would like to limit them here, right, also. But right now I would like to sort. So I'm going to sort. And this is where you get into advanced working with results, right? So let's see, sort by title, author, date, ascending. So 2005 goes through to 2005. Did I do something? Hold on a second. Let me go back to the searching. Oh, I made a mistake. Look at that. Notice this. I'm glad that this happened. 2005 only. I needed either that like that or 2023 to cover till today. So what happened was I only ended up with results from 2005. That's why it was such a small list. So let me see again, searching 2005 to 2023, coffee industry. Oh, look, it changed to the, yeah, coffee. I'm not sure how that happened. Subject phrase, Mexico, and I'm removing Huatusco. And let me see, did it carry over anything else? So subject phrase is the same as subject. And quotes for a one word is useless, doesn't add anything. And those are Boolean operators. I'll explain them in a different video. So now the search produces 61 items, 32 books, one archival. Ooh, let's see what the archival is. I can't resist. Condiciones para la adaptación de los pequeños productores, and it is a publication, but somehow it's listed as archival material. And this is marketing stuff. So I'll go back to the list. And see here the icon of Rutgers University owns it, right? And it's not sorted by year. So I want to sort these. I want to see the most recent first. Let's see, sort. Nope. Results. Let's go to results. List of records. Oh, I see. That's why. There we go. So sort all of these items by date descending. And here, 2022 is the most recent item. El café en la región de Huatusco, Veracruz, historias y formas de vida. That's going to be relevant for me finishing my book. And etc. So 2030, 22 going down in time, right? And there's going to be all kinds of things here, folklore and interviews, and it kind of fleshes out the research on coffee, because that's what I entered, coffee, right? And you can keep going for the next 10 records, right? And I could, pick the ones I like. We'll talk about that next, right? What happens with the results. So to zoom back, right? This is how you enter a search correctly with the dates, right? Make sure you know what you're entering here in particular, subject or keyword, right? And let me just show you how different it looks when the search is keyword. So we had, what, 60 something results, and now we have 2,000 results. It's like, why? Because I changed the search to include the words coffee and Mexico in any part of the record, right? And it could be a detective novel that for some reason the word, obviously a detective novel produced or set in Mexico is going to have the word Mexico, and maybe it has the word coffee somewhere in there. A coffee merchant is murdered. So that novel shows up. I'm not interested in that. Now, another more interesting thing is to search changes to Spanish, right? And obviously cafe is both the coffee and the place. So we're going to switch this back to subject. Oops, subject. There we go. Cafe, Mexico, subject, same years, no other limitations. And this is what you get, slightly different results. Not humongously different in terms of quantity, but different results, right? You start getting book reviews, right? These are online articles. I guess this is a book review, right? Because this looks like a very familiar title. And so the internet piece is probably an online article, right? You can play with these results, and there's a lot to be learned, because suddenly, basically, you have hundreds of people that have entered this data working on your behalf, right? Which is the power of this kind of searching. So let's limit it to books. Rutgers has some of these. Heather's book, Working Women Entrepreneurs in the Mexican Revolution. And here's a book entry, right? And again, you can get a lot of material from the subject classification, the geographic classification, etc., right? And this shows interestingly, it's an English book, but look why it showed up as cafe, because of French language classification, not even Spanish, which is more, Latin American libraries don't really use the Library of Congress, but French libraries apparently do, right? So the word cafe is here not because it's in Spanish, but because it's in French. And that's why this record showed up. Otherwise, this record would not have shown up, right? And now it's interesting to see if this record should have shown up in my previous search, because it's published 2013, right? So play around with the a familiar search, but don't think of focusing on the results. Focus on the process and the interface, right? And let's look at a very powerful tool here that's related subjects, right? So suddenly, related subjects gives you a breakdown of subject words within all the records and a percentage of them. How many of them show up with these subject terms. So this is really, really useful. And of course, it's clickable. And that's going to reproduce a search of coffee plantation workers without the Mexico piece, right? Be aware of that. It's a different rabbit hole, right? Mexico is here. Obviously, I asked for cafe, Mexico. Well, actually, not coffee, but I asked for cafe in Mexico, and somewhere it's an equivalent with coffee industry in these records. So 100%, right? But let's, you have an item classified in French as Mexique. Well, I don't know. You could look and see what that produces, right? Or you could go back and find out what item that is. Archival seems like raw data, unrelated, right? So, okay, so let's get to the last category, which is called saving results, right? So let's reproduce the search. Let's try something different. Let's try this term because this is not a proper subject. Subject terms are usually like industries, industrialization, industrial development. But let's see what happens, right? I removed the year. So I'm doing a subject search for Puerto Rico and factories without any limitations. And I get 138 books. And obviously this is going to include all kinds of stuff from the 19th to the 20th century, a lot on probably on sugarcane. And now notice that because of the subject keyword, right? Let's go back. This is a bad search, right? If I wanted to do a proper subject search, it would be this. And notice the difference in results. See? So the point is for you to be very aware of what you're putting in here, because these are not equivalent. They might overlap. Okay, so I changed it to Spanish to get only 11 results, right? Because I wanted to, for the next thing, I want to illustrate this doesn't really matter how many records you have. So, how do you save this stuff? This is another beauty of the system. If you open an item, you can do a very crass cut and paste, right? Or you can mark it. And you go to the list of records. See, it's marked. You can mark the ones you want. Ooh, I got to look at some of this stuff. Okay, anyway, that's a research thing. Okay, so I marked 4 items. And what do? You can email it to yourself. You can print them. Email is obvious, right? And you can choose the format in which it emails. Print, same thing. Very equivalent. You can print and you can decide how it prints for you, right? I don't recommend print because what do you do with a print, right? The whole point of this is keeping for your own research and your footnotes and bibliographies and so forth. So what sophisticated users would do is export. And export implies that you are using a different system to keep track of your bibliographic research, right? So you can export them all, or you can export the marked ones. And you can export in various formats: text file, RefWorks, or EndNote. RefWorks is an online-only bibliographic and data and note management system offered by the library that is online. You can I can do a video on that later if you want. Let me know. EndNote we have it for free at Rutgers, and It's a bibliographic management software and notes management software. So it's like your own catalog for your research projects with your notes. So it downloads it in that format to your computer, right? So EndNote runs on your computer, and RefWorks is very similar. They're easily translatable, but EndNote is more powerful, right? So you export it, and what it's going to do is produce a download. I don't know if you can see it because of the way I'm filming this, but it's a download file that then EndNote will know what to do with it. And what that record includes is all the information parsed into fields, right? All the information for these things, each one of these fields, right? Sometimes including weird additional things like, these multiple corporate authors or descriptors. Sometimes this carries over. And these here are the fields, right? This is just a straight up database, right? Then it's going to integrate into whatever other fields you have on your EndNote, including obviously a reference number and a annotation field, which is where you would take your notes. And then EndNote with these records becomes your own personal database of the results, right? For you to search, sort, print, etc. So there is a kind of equivalence here of from library catalog to your catalog automatically, which is wonderful. And EndNote can bring in data from all of these databases, including articles and newspapers. Anything online is very standardized to produce output into EndNote format. So you don't have to type or cut and paste. Even a very straightforward, simple use of EndNote for bibliography without notes is useful. Okay, so that's you can also, if you open the account here, you can save these records to your account, the search, right? In different ways, right? And sort of have in there the raw material from your searches if you ever want to reproduce it. So notice again, this is what I want to emphasize before finishing, how powerful this is. Again, this is the advanced search box, search page, and how important it is to play around with the different identifiers and notice the many other identifiers here. If you want to go down this rabbit hole, publisher location. Let's say you're doing research on anything. Let's do the search. Thinking of one of our grad students. Bogota, publisher location, animales as keyword. 2,300 items published in Bogota that contain the term animales. Books, internet, quite a bit of internet. It'd be interesting to find out how the heck internet sites are cataloged. Visual, sound maps, series scores. Look at that music. Anyway, so, here it is. You can, if you're interested in this. And by the way, the parting idea is that 2,300 results here is not a big deal. You can sort through these. If you included an account number here, an account login, you can do 50, I think, at a time. You can go through them very quickly. If in doubt, you always check them, so you save them. You break it down into different kinds of items, if you assign, half a second to each looking at each one of these, you're the expert. You'll be able to tell fairly quickly if it has some value to look at it or not. Um, so think of 2300 as 2300 seconds, and I don't know how that works out into minutes, but I'm pretty sure it's not a bad deal. And you did this from the comfort of your home without having to physically go to a library or work through multiple alphabetically organized, yearly reproduced, year after year after year, multiple volumes. If you wanted to do this search in a print catalog, you'd have to look the same searches year after year in different volumes for each year, until some update gets published 10 years later, or that is comprehensive to that point. Anyway, put any questions in the chat, and next time I'll do a video on Boolean operators, a little bit more careful. I'll do another one on EndNote and how this material gets translated into EndNote, and how you can do your own Boolean operators searches on your computer, although I have a little bit on that in the initial research methods video. So enjoy your WorldCat.